We're going to convert this range from natural gas to propane, and it is a battery ignition system. And the way you know that this range, our premier range, is a battery ignition system is when the model number starts with a B. To convert it, the first thing you'd want to do is remove all the parts that are kind of going to get in the way. And that's pretty simple to do on a premier range. First thing we'll do is take the top off. You lift it at the front and just take it off the back pin. I'm going to remove the oven door. You don't have to, but I'm going to do it because it's easier to work on without the door in place. In order to do that, you kind of need a pin to put in the hole of the hinge to kind of lock it in place. Now that could be a nail, it could be a rivet, anything that will fit in that hole rather snugly. And then you lift up on the front of it to take the door off. We're going to set it aside. As I said, you don't have to do that. It just makes it easier to work on. Next thing is the other units. Get them out of there. Set them aside. The other bottom. You lift at the front. Slide it out below the racks. We'll set it aside. And finally, the oven burner baffle. There's one wing nut on the front of the burner that holds the baffle in place. We'll lift that off, set it aside. Now we can see all the components that are going to have to be adjusted. Converting this range then is really sort of a three-step process. Converting the gas pressure, then the top burners, oven burner, and the thermostat. We'll start with step one, which is converting the regulator for a higher pressure gas. In order to do that, had I not loosened it, generally requires a wrench. You loosen it up. You unscrew the cap, and you'll find a pin below the cap. This range currently is set for natural gas, the way the range was shipped from the factory. We want to convert it to propane by snapping that plastic cap out, flipping it over, sticking it back in the cap. Now when that goes back in, that's going to put more pressure on the spring, which is going to increase the pressure from 5 inches of water column pressure to 10 inches. And 10 inches is what propane gas operates normally at. Now occasionally, this range can be manufactured with a different style regulator, similar to this. If you see this dust cover on this regulator, it's this style. And what you need to do is you need to take that dust cover loose, and it generally takes a screwdriver to snap it off there. Flip this cap over, or unscrew it. Take the strap and put it on the other side, and then screw it back into the regulator. So you're just flipping the cap over and putting it back in. As you can see, it's got an extrusion on this side, which puts more pressure on the spring. And that's how you convert the gas pressure to the whole stove from natural to propane. That's it. So now that we've converted the top burners, we need to also convert the oven burners so that it'll operate on propane gas. Now this is a little bit different. When you want to convert the oven burner, you need to rotate the brass fitting at the base of the oven. It's located right here in the range. Now, I have sort of an example of what that looks like. It's like this. It's got a little cover over the top of it to hold it in place. But this is basically it. And the oven burner is sitting on top. You're going to take a 1/2-inch wrench and you're going to screw this hood clockwise down onto that valve to convert it to propane. And what you're doing is you're driving a pin up into this hood it's metered for propane gas rather than natural, so it'll make that hole smaller for propane. And kind of the way you go about that is to use a 1/2 inch wrench. And it's also a good idea to hold the bottom bracket at the same time. So basically you'd go to something like this and turn it clockwise to tighten it. And screw it down as far as you can get it to go. And that should convert that oven burner to propane gas. Step 2 in converting this range to propane is to convert the orifices for the top burners. And the way we do that is we're going to remove this top burner. And as you can see, there's a screw that holds each top burner in place. We're going to go ahead and take one of these screws out and then lift this burner out to get it out of the way. Then, with a 7mm nut driver or a small wrench, you unscrew the orifice from the end of the valve. Inside the oven, when you receive the range, was an orifice kit similar to this. We're going to replace, this is the left front burner. We're going to replace it with the orifice that says left front and put it in here. Now, you may notice that this isn't quite the range that this kit goes with. This kit is for a range with just 4 burners. This range would normally have an orifice here as well for this center burner. But for demonstration purposes, this one would go in here, and obviously this would go in this orifice. And that's how you convert the burner to propane. And what you're doing here basically is you're taking the orifice, which is a hole drilled for natural gas, and you're replacing it with an orifice that's drilled for propane gas, which requires a smaller hole. And that's really what you're changing. So that's how you change the top burners. Now what you want to do is you want to do this with each of the burners. So you just repeat the same process with this burner, this burner, this burner, and this burner. Now that we've adjusted the top burners for propane gas and the oven burner for propane, we need to also convert the oven thermostat control to propane. And that's because this, being a battery system, this is also a thermocouple system, which means that the oven will have a pilot lit the whole time the burner is in operation. And that pilot has to be adjusted for propane gas from natural. Without the adjustment, if it's left in the standing or the natural gas position, that pilot will be really large. So we need to turn it down and make it smaller. So I'm going to show you how we make the adjustment to the thermostat. The first step would be you remove the knob, and there's an access hole in the control panel that reaches back to the pilot. Screw. You screw that thing clockwise until it stops. Now what you've done by doing that is you've cut the burner flame down when the range is at a satisfied position. Like let's say you set it for 350 degrees. Once it reaches 350 degrees, that burner stays on. But we want it to be as small as possibly can be. That's what that adjustment is for. When you turn that all the way down, you're making that burner as minimal as you can get it in order to keep the burner on. Okay? The next adjustment is on the left-hand side of the control. And it is the pilot adjustment screw. It is located on the left-hand side. And there again, you engage the screw, you rotate it clockwise until it comes to a stop position. It's about a full turn. You don't have to over tighten it, just bottom it out. With that screw backed off, it is fine for natural gas. But the only way to meter it for propane is to use that adjustment screw. And it's not so much an adjustment screw, but it's a metered screw. It would look similar to this. So you can see there's a hole, and that's what meters the amount of gas that will go to that pilot. It really does nothing when it's in the natural gas position, but in the propane position, that becomes important. And when you screw it down, that forces the gas to go through this metered pilot and cut the pilot flow to the oven. Now, to give you a closer look at it, I have a control here. This is what we're looking at. The adjustment on the right is right alongside the thermostat, and that's how you come through the knob to get to it, and you rotate it to the closest, and it's about a half a turn. Then on the left-hand side of the control, this is for the pilot, and the pilot attaches here. And there again, you screw this down until it seats. It's about a full turn. That's how you convert the thermostat to propane on a premier battery ignition range. Okay, now we finished converting the range. Step 4 would probably be to just check the top burners and the oven for lighting with the intentions of seeing what you hope to see, that the burners are clean and blue. After that, we're just going to put the range back together again. So I'll show you go through those steps again and put this thing back together so it's ready to go. So I'll put the oven burner baffle on it. Put the oven bottom back in, and there's tabs at the back. Just slide into slots in the back of the oven lining. And then you just push it in at the front. We'll put the oven racks back in. And now the oven door. When you put the oven door back in, you slide it into the front frame. Lift up as you push it in, and then drop it down. And if you tap on the screw, the nail, it'll pop out in order to reset the door. And finally, we'll set the top on. There's hooks in the back. The top just leans up with those hooks. And drops down to the front. And then you set your grates back in place. And that's how you put it back together after converting it.